Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Waldman. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is February 27th, Tuesday, February 27th, 2018. We are ready for another show because the sun has risen and it's come around to be 9 o'clock in the morning on the East Coast here once again. Not because we're prepared with anything in particular, but because the time has come. And as usual, the world has provided us with plenty of material. And as usual, if we thought we were going to plan a show, that's all over with because the president is rage tweeting again. I don't think we might not even really have to cover his rage tweeting. But I did see he's watching Fox TV in the morning because that's what he does. It's executive time now. Time to lay down and watch some telly. And he sees something that makes him angry on TV, so he's going to just anger tweet about that this morning. Of course, it is the Trump-Russia Mueller investigation in which there's no collusion and it's a total witch hunt. So he's tweeted that out because he's a very, very, very mature individual. And that's good news. We're glad to see that that's happening. Plenty to pick up on today. And, let's go ahead and do that, I guess. And, We'll just we'll wing our way through it because that's the way they're running the presidency at this point. And there's really no point in trying to run an administration or administer laws or guarantee a Republican form of government or any of those things that stupid Constitution says. It's long, it's stupid, it's written in curly Q letters. No one can read it. It's totally ridiculous, and we should throw it out. Besides which, I would have saved all those kids in the school. We're back on the gun issue as well. That also in the news, though that's not what he's anger tweeting about today. But I should just basically read you the last hour of Twitter, and that would pretty much cover it. Maybe that's what we'll do. Daily Coast Radio is live now, and that's how we'll spend the day. That's what I say. Bill in Portland, Maine says we'll do something else, but, he's just guessing too. Listen, as Kagro X, that's me, and that's how you can reach me on Twitter. If you have an idea about where the show should go, by all means, let me know. Listen, as Kagro X runs in and subdues the marauding tub of year-old cottage cheese in the back of his fridge, unarmed. It's a little bit like taking down the president, I guess. Let me just tell you, what's going on here. Hang on a second. Getting a new report of a gun fail, and I can't refuse to retweet those with my fun hashtag. Just another one of dozens that we see routinely. An Oklahoma teenager who cleaning a gun accidentally shot himself in the gut, as does happen a little too frequently. And, of course, finally, we're all getting what we wanted and deserved out of this election. Let's see. Here's what's been going on Twitter this morning that's been particularly egregious, I guess, besides the president's rage tweeting. Let's see. Here's our daily LOL YOLO Nothing Matters story. Occupy Wall Street letting us know that Students for Trump won't reveal who's bankrolling their group despite FEC warnings to do so. And they do have two particularly bro-ish white dudes here, arms around one another and holding up, not the thumbs up, but the index finger, number one. I'm awesome. I just came back from the gym in my awesome Donald Trump t-shirt. You should see this mess that he's wearing. Both wearing their MAGA hats. Of course, two young Donald Trump fans wait to get inside the Trump rally in Manchester, New Hampshire on November 7th, 2016. That's the caption that goes with this particularly stupid-looking photo. Raw Story reporting this one. The college organization Students for Trump, or SFT, hasn't disclosed who its donors are since July 2016, despite being legally required to do so. The Daily Beast reporting this one, and Raw Story passing on the story. Raw Story loves to cover the Daily Beast because they got a good eye for news. I think that's, That's their main service to us, is sniffing out the good Daily Beast stories, really, and elsewhere, of course. The Daily Beast explained that SFT coordinated with the Trump campaign during the 2016 election to get out the vote for millennials and run a social media advocacy campaign, which I think maybe they weren't supposed to be allowed to do. Despite questions about troll farms and Russia paying for a robust social media campaign, the Political Action Committee hasn't been questioned by the Federal Election Commission as to who their donors were. So just one of the, like I say, LOL YOLO laws, nothing matters. You're legally required to tell us who your donors are. What if I don't? We're finally at that stage where Students for Trump says, listen, Trump is the president. It doesn't matter if you're quote unquote legally required to tell the FEC. The FEC is an ineffectual organization. We've decimated their board. There's hardly anybody on there. It'll always end up in a tie vote and nothing will happen. Plus the president will, I don't know, he'll pardon you. He'll tell the FEC people, don't do this, don't look. Who cares? Leave them alone. And you'll get away with it. It'll be fine. We know who's bankrolling a group like that, and why not protect them? Just say, forget about it. The FEC isn't going to look into it. The FEC has sent a series of 9 letters since it was formed, the PAC, that is, in July of 2016, asking for the legally required disclosure reports, yet they've received no reports. The group blamed their former treasurer for the lack of a filing. As you will see, all records are under John Lambert, who is no longer with SFT and hasn't been with us for some time. Spokesperson Mia Chamberlain said in an email to The Beast. An FEC filing was officially filed, however, due to certain changes in the past, a request was sent in to nullify the filings. She went on to say that founder and chair Ryan Fournier, not Ron Fournier, but Ryan Fournier, I think, is unsure as to why it did not go through, as he was not the agent who prepared and sent in the documentation. I don't know what that even is supposed to mean. Ryan Fournier is unsure as to why the filing, the request to nullify filings, did not go through, as he was not the agent who prepared and sent in the documentation. I guess that's the idea. Ryan Fournier wrote and said, please nullify our former filings because I wasn't the agent who prepared them. That I don't think really helps them or matters in any way. It's unclear how the treasurer being gone explains why no report has been filed for 19 months. Sounds like they don't know what they're doing, said Brendan Fisher of the Campaign Legal Center. One of the avid supporters and former national director of the group was Italian real estate developer Guido Lombardi. Because why not? He sounds like a legitimate businessman who worked as a go-between for the Trump campaign and right-wing leaders and parties in Europe. Not America, Europe. In a Newsweek interview, Fournier claimed Students for Trump had more than 5,000 student members, of course, 5 million, 5 billion, as a matter of fact, student members belonging to their hundreds of chapters in approximately 40 states. Really? I don't know. I mean, that's sort of, let me just think about that for a second and run through numbers. Just curious about that. 5,000 members in 40 states. That's 125 Students for Trump. Totally possible in each of the 40 states, but hundreds of chapters. 5,000, of course, divided by hundreds of chapters would be 50 students per chapter. Hundreds of chapters at a minimum would be 25 students per chapter. I'm beginning to think that maybe there weren't that many Students for Trump in the actual organization. Anyway, yet the political group isn't classified as a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. Since the election, however, the organization has been mostly inactive. I don't know why they think they would be registered in that weird way. Though as a legally active PAC, it's required to abide by the law. So who do you arrest? Answer, we don't know. Nobody. There's no treasurer anyway, and we wouldn't arrest them normally anyhow. Normally, PACs actually care about maintaining themselves legally because they want to continue to act in the future. But since there's no threat of prosecution because their guy won, I guess they think they don't have to do this. The failure to timely file a complete report may result in civil money penalties, an audit, or legal enforcement action. FEC letters warn. Of course, when it comes time to vote on what to do, they'll be hopelessly deadlocked and do nothing, and these guys know it. the students don't. The people who run the place, who bankroll it, know that they won't get fined. If the PAC filed its disclosure, the public would be aware of the donors of the group and how its money was spent and where. But yada, yada, not going to do it. Citizens United, something, something, something. Money is speech. So long as there's full disclosure, what's your problem, says Mitch McConnell. Answer, there isn't full disclosure. Answer from McConnell, LOL, YOLO, nothing matters. I can't help you. So what? Big deal. Who cares? Goodbye. Arrest whoever you want. If you think you can get an arrest warrant issued, go for it. But of course we can't. So that's it, I guess. Oh, well. Let's see. Other fun things we're learning on Twitter. Yes, this morning I read this one. I'm going to have to scroll down a little bit for this one. It's I did my own yelling on Twitter about this one. Here we go. Mike Debonis. Deboni. Does he drop the S like French? Debonis. Washington Post reporter covering Congress. And this an interesting bit here. Whoops, I've clicked on the wrong things here. Jumping back. He got a hold of this gem, I guess, from Congressman Mark Meadows. He's the North Carolina congressman and I think nominal head of the Freedom Caucus. One idea, this is great. This is a gun issue thing. One idea Representative Mark Meadows is floating to respond to Parkland. Tax credits for veterans, retirees, etc., who want to volunteer as armed school guards. I'm not even kidding about that. What do we mean? I guess is one question. What do we mean by volunteer as armed school guards? Well, that's already underway. What do I mean by that? I mean, I have seen reports so far, let's see, from Tennessee. We've seen one of those. And where's the original one that I saw? Was it Indiana, Fort Wayne? Is that correct? Let's see. I'm going to have to zip back to yesterday here. There we go. Where I got this one. Fort Wayne, Indiana. Yes, that was the first one I saw. Armed Oath Keeper, you remember those guys, the Oath Keepers, stands watch at Northside High School. Dateline here is Fort Wayne, Indiana. The story is exactly what it sounds like. It's terrible. The Oath Keeper guys, who knows who the hell they are, have decided they're going to guard America's schools. In the absence of, I don't know, nothing in particular, they're going to guard America's schools. In other words, random local gun nuts and maybe loners, possibly, are going to show up and stand outside of your kids' schools with their guns. Which, last week, that was the problem. Local crazy randos with guns coming to America's schools. This week, it's not only the solution, but they should get a tax credit for doing it. In Fort Wayne, here's our story here, according to the local NBC affiliate. An armed Oath Keeper is standing watch outside of a local high school. Mark Cowan, C-O-W-A-N, I should say Cohen, just to make him annoyed. For some unknown reason, that will probably bother an Oath Keeper. I don't know what the reason is. I can't put my finger on it. Mark Cowan, we'll say, because, he loves Jesus, is an Oath Keeper of Indiana. A, quote, I love the description of themselves, a nonpartisan association of current and formerly serving military, police, and first responders who pledge to fulfill the oath all military and police take to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, according to their website. I mean, they've got a little bit of a posse comitatus problem, but okay. Anyway, on Friday, Cowan began his watch at Northside High School armed with a handgun. Cowan said he also had an AR-15 in the front seat of his car. He said he plans on standing at the school every day. So like I said, problem solved. A local weirdo has agreed though no one has requested, has agreed to come and stand menacingly outside of the local high school with his AR-15. Hooray! We're saved! Finally, a solution to the problem of local weirdos flocking to local high schools with AR-15s. How do you solve it? Local weirdos flocking to high schools with AR-15s. That is the answer. That is exactly what we were looking for. Cowan said the Indiana Oath Keepers have about 100 members who are watching high schools all over eastern Indiana, I bet, beginning today. And it's important to note what that means. That is Friday, February 23rd is the dateline on this thing. So I guess on Friday they began in Indiana. So mark that down. The reason I want you to mark it down, of course, is for some of you this would be very familiar sounding. Oath Keepers and other lunatics who just happen to have AR-15s around already are coming to guard, I don't know, stand out in public guarding some institution that they've determined needs their help. And like I said, it's probably familiar to you because this was something that they did following the shooting at the, was it Chattanooga area, military recruiting centers. You remember that there was the infamous shooting there, and they decided that what was really needed in all of this was for the local AR-15 owners to come out and stand guard in front of military recruiting centers, which are often, of course, in the middle of strip malls, and they would patrol the area and keep it free from insane, crazy, terrorist, Muslim, jihadist terrorism, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, what have you. Whatever the flavor of the moment was. Maybe at that time we were worried about Khorasan. Maybe that was what was worrying us at that particular time. I don't know. But it's important to keep track of the dates because I wanted to track then how long will it take before one of these local idiots accidentally discharges one of these AR-15s or any of the weapons they happen to bring with them. And I don't know whether they need to hit anybody, but, it's a pretty good warning sign if they just accidentally discharge their weapon. The answer was 4 days. It took 4 days, which I figured based on the earliest report I could find of volunteers showing up and guarding a military recruiting center anywhere in the country and an accidental discharge happening anywhere in the country, even if it was a different military, so long as it happened outside one of the military recruiting centers. In other words, if they came out on a Monday to guard a military recruiting center in Indiana and somebody in Ohio had an accidental discharge in the parking lot guarding a local military recruiting 4 days later, but the guy from Ohio didn't arrive until that morning, and that very first day that he showed up, he had the accidental discharge. I wouldn't make that, it's not a one-day thing. I credit them for the 4 days that they were guarding out in Indiana. We just, you only have to see the one accidental discharge. So I figure I give them the benefit of the doubt. So let's see, they started on Friday. Do they guard on weekends? I'm not really sure. Probably not. They take the weekends off if the kids are out of school. Friday, Monday. Today is Tuesday. Today would be day 3. So if past history is any guide, tomorrow's the day for an accidental discharge outside of one of these schools. Obviously, it's not scientific, and we don't know how many people are guarding, how many schools. Maybe we saw more people outside of the military recruiting centers because it's hanging out at the mall, and that's a little bit more popular among the kind of people who would do something like that, perhaps, than standing outside of a school. But, nonetheless, that's what they're undertaking. So I expect it'll happen fairly soon. And by the way, why do I expect that it would happen? One, these are mostly untrained idiots, despite the fact that they claim to be current and formerly serving military, police, and first responders. I don't know that they really have that as a requirement. And two, I don't know that it was an Oath Keeper that did it last time. And the Oath Keepers would surely say, well, we're better trained than the average idiot who just showed up at that recruiting center and fired his AR-15 into the parking lot. We totally wouldn't do that. I saw this. I'll tell you how this came to my attention yesterday. was I was just minding my own business there on the Twitter machines when I came across, let's see, did I pocket these tweets or not? I can't tell you. I'll have to take a look. I don't think did I put them all away? I doubt it. Okay. Well, anyway, I put aside the story from Fort Wayne's NBC affiliate about the Fort Wayne guy, but I didn't put aside. I saw somebody tweet, and I'll scroll back and find out who sent me JJ McNabb. You remember she's the reporter that basically covers the militia guys in almost everything that they do. And what she discovered in tweeting this out and having comments come in was that they got a picture of the guy's AR-15 in his car, and it has a laser scope on it. You know, one of those things that you would use to put a red dot on your target, and use that way for your targeting, and then, put the red dot where you want the bullet to hit. And if everything is calibrated correctly, you'll, it'll come pretty close to working out for you, and you'll hit your target. And this guy, according to the people who were looking closely at this setup, there we are, Bev Marie, who tweets as Even, E-V-E-N, Bev. Even Bev had sent this thing along. Read this thread, as she says, about one of these oath keepers, and I think that's totally intentional. Oath keeper yahoos, although it does say yahoos, so we did have a little bit of a typo in there. It's okay. I'm cool with that. Read about one of these oath keeper yahoos. Put the sights on his gun backwards, which ordinarily is just problematic in that, if you just have an optical sight, you'd be like, boy, that target looks small and far away, when instead it's supposed to look closer and bigger. But of course it's a laser sight. So like if he hits the button and looks through it and he's going to fire a laser into his own eye, which I understand is bad for you, I think, and maybe not the thing to do. I don't know if it really will do any permanent damage. I don't really, it's up. Look, you assume all risk in all this. If you damage your eyes, I can't help you. I can't feel bad about that. I think you might actually get away with that one briefly. But, I mean, if he keeps looking and says, boy, I really can't see anything in there, and just wiggles his eye around looking to try to find his focus, I think he could give himself a real problem. But he'll know exactly how much he costs at the end. It'll ring up the UPC code on the back of his cornea, and he'll be able to move through checkout that much faster. So he put the thing on backwards, and so there's, I think, a pretty good chance that he's also going to do something terribly stupid while he's there. The coverage of his stalking the school was also not particularly good. But let's see. The claim is that they have about 100 members watching high schools all over eastern Indiana beginning on Friday. He said that although students and parents are not aware of the keepers standing guard, they've informed local police, which I guess is a good step. I mean, so that when they get panicked calls, and why would they? They didn't inform parents or the students or the schools, right? So when you get to school, a weirdo all dressed in black, maybe military-ish looking gear on, perhaps with an AR-15 strapped over the shoulder, handgun at the side, is just lurking outside your school. That usually warrants a call to the police. The police say, oh yeah, that's Earl, hopefully, as opposed to the very real possibility that they say, I don't know who this guy is. He called, but I mean, at this point, really, honestly, a random gun weirdo has shown up outside the school, but it's okay because he called us and said he's a good guy. And of course, if he's not a good guy, it gets looked back on like, oh, actually, that was a threat. They phoned in a threat against the school to the police. They just didn't say, I'm a bad guy. They said, I'm a good guy. I mean, I don't even know what to tell you about the serious risk and serious lack of wisdom wrapped up in something like this. But these guys think it's okay because, well, I know I'm a good guy, even if I have an accidental discharge. I know I'm a good guy. We don't know anything about you. And now Mark Meadows is out there like, maybe we should give a tax credit to this guy and everybody else. So imagine the scenario. I mean, now here's what it takes. Want to do a school shooting? I don't want to like suggest anything to anybody, but here's all it takes. Hi, I'm Adam Lanza, and I'm here for my tax cut. What? Hi, I'm Roy Moore. I'm here to protect your school. Here's my gun. Here's my hat, right? Here's my crazy vest. I brought my gun. I'm here to protect your school. Got any girls at this school that need protecting? I mean, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to protect people, serve the public, not here to interrupt the school day or pull people out of trigonometry class or anything like that. He's just there because there's some sexy high school girls who need protecting, I guess, or maybe elementary school girls or middle school girls for that matter. I don't know. They need protecting too, right? So why not just show up and do that? We don't know who they are. And he wants to give them a tax credit on top of all of that. And like I said this morning, imagine looking at the rash of school shootings in this country and saying to yourself, what we have here is a serious shortage of gun randos showing up at our schools. Maybe though, as usual, we being fiscal conservatives and stuff, know how to solve the problem. Not enough armed randos showing up at your kid's school. Tax credits, a tax cut will why not some tax incentives to show up at a local school with a gun? It'll work out great because only good guys are allowed. And so that ought to solve the problem, I guess. Now, of course, it's entirely possible that they may say, oh, well, we're going to be vetting them. We're not just going to let anybody who wants to show up and take advantage of this payment plan where we give you payment through the tax system. We're going to vet you. Of course, that's called hiring security guards. If you're going to vet people and pay them, then just hire security guards. You want to hire them for less, that's, I guess, a fine thing to do. But by the way, vetting these guys, I don't think so. Hi everybody, it's me, David. Let's change things up from the old fundraising pitch for just a minute and talk instead about how you can be a part of our show. If you've got a smartphone or any other electronic recording device, why not sit down and record a segment for us? Read us an important article and give us your take. Or read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Then send the file to me at kagrox@gmail.com and I'll try and work it into the show. Short segments, a few minutes in length, are easiest to fit in. And of course, I can't always guarantee that I'll be able to play everything, but if you've ever shouted at your radio or TV about something you wish was being covered, here's your chance to change that. Make the show your own. Send your submissions to me at kagrox@gmail.com. Welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. This is kind of a bad situation, like I said, that I'm following here, and I guess this topic could easily run away with me. But let's get through the story of, as reported out in Fort Wayne, of the lone lunatic standing outside of Northside High School. Not an active shooter; he's very passive. But he is standing out there, and everybody's proud and happy to have him. I guess he thinks so, because he informed the local police, which has done nothing. So I don't know what we're supposed to make of this stuff. But again, please do consider the possibility that somebody just says, I'm in it to help the kids or whatever, and hey, maybe I'll claim the tax cut until the day comes when he doesn't care anymore. And either just decides, I'm tired of it. I'm not going to show up anymore. I mean, how do you like that? Now your new guard doesn't show up anymore. I mean, do we monitor this? Think about the idiocy of the tax credit idea. I know that will go nowhere, but just amazing. I mean, all by itself, really, it should tell you everything you need to know about conservative Republicans. What are we going to do in this situation? I don't know. Tax cuts. Really? I mean, we're that ludicrous now. We're that through the looking glass. Oh my God. So many school shootings. What should we do? Cut taxes. Yeah, good. Thank you for paying attention to what the F is going on here. I'm going to cut taxes and encourage more people at random to show up and hang out there. And what do we do? We start giving them the tax cut. He pockets the money, and then he doesn't show up anymore. Like, you can't fire somebody really from a job that you've paid them for with a tax cut, per se, once they qualify for it. The IRS now has to send agents out to audit whether or not you're showing up at the local school often enough. We now have a new system. This is how we're going to do it for cut rates. We're going to hire / tax subsidize guards / local randos who like to patrol stuff with guns. And if they get tired of it or they got something else to do that day, they just don't show up because we don't pay them like normal. That's what a great solution for our schools. Maybe there'll be somebody there. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe they'll be there on top of paid security. Maybe those two guys will never confuse one another and accidentally think that the other guy is a crazed gunman. A different school security guard shows up. Different volunteer shows up. Different volunteer shows up, accidentally discharges his weapon. At what point do you fire on him? I don't know. When does he become an active shooter? I don't know. All right, all those things looming in the background. The Public Information Officer for Fort Wayne Community Schools, Krista J. Stockman, no relation that I know of to Steve Stockman, gun lunatic, said they take the security of the schools very seriously, so that's cool. We understand he has a right to be out there, Stockman said, and he is not on our property, but we do not believe it adds to the safety of our students. At Northside, as at all of our schools, we have security procedures in place. In addition, at Northside, we have armed police officers in the building every day. Cowan said he's ready to risk his life to protect the children, like Donald Trump, who is still, I guess, out there claiming that he totally would have run into that school and disarmed the guy with a flying roundhouse kick to the face, all 300 pounds of my massive weight behind my, delivering my blow. He doesn't run anywhere. The guy drives his golf cart onto the green. He's not running in to save anybody. I'm supposed to take a walk of 700 yards with the G20 leaders, the new leadership of the world, but I'm feeling like maybe a golf cart would be a better option at this point. It's been a long day, and a school shooting. Hold on, kids. Coming. Where's my inhaler? I can't imagine him being able to do any of this stuff. Not to mention the fact that somebody else came up with a great line, tweeting today, I would have run into that school. I would have saved the kids. I know the guy had an AR-15. I would have dodged those bullets like they were the draft. Remember who we're talking about here. So, here's another fun thing to note about this. Cowan does say he's ready to risk his life to protect the children. Fort Wayne's NBC affiliate, of course, has learned that Cowan has been convicted of misdemeanor battery resulting in bodily injury. We uncovered that he was charged in an altercation with another person. That's how you get to misdemeanor battery resulting in bodily injury. Fort Wayne's NBC reached out to Cowan for an on-camera interview. He declined, but did talk to our team over the phone. Cowan says he was protecting his family. Says the man he hit had already hit one of his grandsons and was about to hit the other. I don't know. Let's throw the music in there. I have no idea what that means. Certainly you don't want people hitting your grandchildren. I just have questions. That's the sort of comment that really leaves more questions unanswered than anything else. I have more. So he's protecting his grandsons. That's why I hit the guy and whatever. And okay, so there you go. So, hey, police, there's a guy with a history, who's got a rap sheet. It's minor, misdemeanor battery. I don't know how that came about, but, he's armed and he's out here. And it's not a felony, so it doesn't mean he has to be disarmed. But I don't know. He's dressed all in black and he's kind of weird. And nobody asked him to be here. And we really would rather he not be here. Is he on your property? No, but he's like overlooking our property and it's kind of creepy and I don't know what to do with this guy. Sorry, can't help you. Everybody's got a right to hang out around schools with guns because gun-free zones are stupid and they're magnets for lunatics. I know, and I think we might have one here. No, he called and said he was a good lunatic, not a bad lunatic. Are you a good witch or a bad witch? It's a witch hunt. I know that. So we found one. He's a good witch, and we're all in good shape. A misdemeanor battery conviction, of course, does not prevent him from carrying a firearm. They do note that at the end of the article. So there you go. Good news. And if you watch the video that is embedded in this piece here, you'll see that he's got that AR-15 scope on backwards. I think they may have updated this piece because yesterday, I believe, they had said, he's outside of his car. It says armed with a handgun. I think yesterday it said he was armed with a concealed handgun, but no, it's being openly carried. I don't know why they would have called that concealed. I think that's just perhaps force of habit. Anyway, as it turns out, there's another one of these loons guarding, where? In Tennessee. So let me see if I can find our intrepid reporter's tweet. Here we go. It's our good friend from down in the Nashville area, Litz11, and Litzz is how she spells her Twitter handle, and she very frequently keeps me up to date on what's going on with gun nuts in the greater Tennessee, really, but the Nashville area in particular. She says, we have one too, and he wears body armor as well, and I see the gun he's brought something looks a little closer to a hunting rifle with a wooden stock and everything, and I don't know if that's supposed to be better or not. Here's the headline over at the Tennessean. Radnor Lake Rambo causes stir at Vanderbilt Hillsborough High. So this time, it doesn't say he's an oath keeper, does it? So he's not even affiliated with a group that you could pretend gave him some legitimacy. It doesn't. They're an illegitimate gang. I don't know that I would necessarily say they're criminal thugs or anything. They're just a loose association of weirdos who gave themselves a constitutional purpose, and nobody can be sure whether they're adhering to it or not. This guy isn't even one of those. He's just plain one of those gun provocateurs who does open carry walks, and he figured he would do it at the school because now he could say, I'm guarding it. The man known as the Radnor Lake Rambo. Oh, I'm sorry. This is an old article, too. So this is September 18th, 2014. I wonder if that is around the time of when do we have that attack on Chattanooga? Is that about the time? Because this isn't the military recruiting station. It's a school. But yeah, these guys hit upon this idea before they married the two ideas of patrolling the schools because shootings, before they had a concrete example to react to, where this guy could say this is because of Parkland. This guy was just doing it because he wanted to provoke the local police. The man known as the Radnor Lake Rambo, back in 2014, is back at it again, this time parading around Vanderbilt University and Hillsborough High School with a rifle and Second Amendment pamphlets. Leonard Embody. It says, it's spelled like embody, but I don't know whether he says, my name is Leonard Embody. Leonard Embody, I have no idea. 42 at the time, slightly older now, is well known in the Nashville area for his provocative actions on gun rights. And that's what you want around a high school, a provocative guy with a gun. He's been stopped by police multiple times for walking around with guns in public and recently beat the rap on a charge he illegally possessed a silencer while walking armed downtown. Yay, they're beating the raps. On Wednesday, Embody was spotted walking around the Vanderbilt University campus before moving on to Hillsborough High School, prompting calls to police, from concerned passersby. They thought he was a gun nut near a school, and he was a gun nut near a school. But what happened? Police didn't stop him. And though police did not stop him, Embody has posted videos in recent weeks of being detained briefly by police in Gallatin and on Vanderbilt's campus. He's being oppressed, you see. Every time he shows up at a high school or college campus with his gun and the cops ask him, what are you doing here and why? He says, help, I'm being oppressed. There are hundreds of millions of guns in the U.S. The number of guns which are used in illegal fashion is minuscule. I will continue to open carry. I might as well give him an accent. I will continue to open carry and hand out my leaflets. I'm giving him sort of the Bill Clinton Arkansas accent, though. Nashville accent. I don't know if I can dial that up right away. I should probably stop, but I won't. I'll continue to open carry and hand out my leaflets. And Buddy said Thursday, I'm used to the cops tailing me. That's who you don't want at the school. Yesterday, there were probably 10 cop cars following me around Vanderbilt. The Hillsborough High School response took longer, probably due to traffic, and there was less of a presence. But his actions drew fire, just figurative fire, from the Tennessee chapter of Moms Demand Action. Oh, shoot. At least that'll solve it. I know. I mean, the cops will come and arrest Moms Demand, is what I mean. Right? You're infringing on your Second Amendment rights, ma'am. You're under arrest. Anyway, yeah, of course, they're a group dedicated to strengthening gun laws. As moms, we don't want armed individuals playing politics with our children. I don't know whether this is a local or not, especially in the sanctity of their schools, said Linda McFadden Ketchum, head of the Tennessee chapter. Maybe not originally from Tennessee. Let's give her an Ohio accent. I don't know. When we drop our children at school, moms and teachers need to know when our kids will be learning math and science, not wondering whether they should duck and cover when confronted by a stranger carrying a firearm. It was true then, and it's true now. Amity is accused of causing a stir by walking around in public with firearms, and he has filed multiple lawsuits against police departments that have detained him. Super stable genius is what the president would have to say about him. His actions have been costly, though. He lost his first concealed weapons permit and then his financial health after he said he was bankrupted fighting the silencer charge. Too bad. But police appear to be less willing to take the bait in recent weeks. Ah, that's good. I think the word must be getting around that what I do is legal, Embody said. And that sounds fantastic. So now in Nashville, cops far less interested in responding to reports of weird lone gunmen lurking around your public schools. Congratulations, Leonard Embody. You are responsible for the next school shooting in Nashville, Tennessee. I award it to you, along with 10 points for Gryffindor, officially. Okay, let's see. Well, what else have we here? We should probably get off of the gun topic at some point. But be aware that this is happening, and be aware that we remember what happened when these guys showed up to guard the military recruiting centers. And I guess it's only a matter of time until one of them does this somewhere else, like a school. And I wanted you to know about Mark Meadows and his crazy idea to give tax incentives for people to do this. That's possibly the worst / most Republican response to anything I've ever heard. That's like peak Republicanism. All right. I believe we've got enough time here before our next break to sneak this one in. And this will help us shift gears and get off the gun topic and maybe look for another direction out of this trap we call a show. Just kidding. Mark Hogue, who listens to the show with, let's say, considerable frequency, has sent us a critique of one of the items from yesterday's show, which, Kate Sherrill says, no, he's clearly Slytherin. Yeah, but that's why I gave the points to Gryffindor. You see, he's, for being wise enough not to be patrolling with a wand openly carried outside of the Hogwarts grounds. I don't know. It's all very odd. Oh, by the way, before I switch gears again, Michael Musson, good point here. This would make a great debate. What a great exchange it would be. We should get Mark Meadows up there on stage and discuss this, because that's how the conversation would go. We say, you're telling me you want to give tax credits to random weirdos to show up at our schools? That's actually the problem, is that random weirdos are showing up at our schools with guns. We can't encourage that. Oh, no, we would vet them. You see, we would totally vet them. Well, okay, for one thing, that's called hiring people. If you vet them and pay them, that's called hiring them. But Michael Musson makes the point, are you saying then that the Oath Keepers are going to support the idea of background checks for their volunteers? Because I don't know that they necessarily will. And that would be what you were talking about. And of course, for him to then say, oh, well, we would vet them. Well, all right. This is the guy who's like kissing the ass of the least vetted White House administration ever in the history of anything, China included. And You endorsed Roy Moore. I don't want you vetting anybody hanging around the schools or really anybody doing anything. I wouldn't take a recommendation for a restaurant from you. You endorsed Roy Moore. You don't know how to vet. That's not something you're capable of doing. All right. Anyway, like I said, I've got some other material. Armando, I've got plenty, but by all means, you would be, I'd invite you to come in after, let's say, the top of the hour so that I can sneak in with this item here that I've got and you'll appreciate it. This will give you pause, Armando, and you'll be able to wait patiently, I guess, until 10 o'clock because the piece is premised on the idea that Greg is wrong. You get the idea? All right. Let me call up my all of my what was I want to look up? Oh yes, right. It was where all my material is coming from. Mark Hogue, who tweets, and you should follow along. We all deserve to follow one another here at the show. Keep it in the family. Mark Hogue tweets as Thor Gamma, right? Thor, like the Norse god, I guess, unless I'm misunderstanding things, and Gamma, as in the Greek letter. And so I don't really know how that gets put together, but well, you can follow him and ask him to explain it to you. But he picked up on the fact that, well, he had an opportunity to say Greg was wrong. And of course, he's not doing it in a mean way. We all love to tease on this stuff. But he was remarking on our comments about the N's and S's yesterday. That is one of the attributes in the Myers-Briggs profile, the test, the Myers-Briggs test that they give you that designates you either as introvert, extrovert, or what did we say? Sensory or intuitive, right? All of those different descriptors. And it's a thing for him because he's paid attention for quite some time to, I guess, the lack of scientific basis for the Myers-Briggs test. And in fact, has picked up an article that he thought he would share with us. And I am glad he did so, from The Guardian. And it is on just this topic. So he's going to read this to us and take this opportunity to borrow from Dean Burnett, writing in The Guardian. Nothing personal, the questionable Myers-Briggs test. Let's roll that before we run out of time.
This is from Dean Burnett at The Guardian, 19 March 2013. Nothing personal, the questionable Myers-Briggs test. The Myers-Briggs personality test is used by companies the world over, but the evidence is that it's nowhere near as useful as its popularity suggests. I was recently reviewing some psychological lectures for my real job. One of those was on personality tests. The speaker mentioned the Myers-Briggs test, explaining that, while well known, I personally know it from a Dilbert cartoon, the Myers-Briggs test isn't recognized as being scientifically valid, so is largely ignored by the field of psychology. I tweeted this fact thinking it would be of passing interest to a few people. I was unprepared for the intensity of the replies I got. I learned several things that day. 1. The Myers-Briggs type indicator is used by countless organizations and industries, although one of the few areas that doesn't use it is psychology, which says a lot. 2. Many people who have encountered the MBTI in the workplace really don't have a lot of positive things to say about it. 3. For some organizations, the use of the MBTI seemingly crosses the line into full-blown ideology. So how did something that apparently lacks scientific credibility become such a popular and accepted tool? The MBTI was developed during World War II by Myers and Briggs, obviously, two housewives who developed a keen interest in the works of Carl Jung. They developed the MBTI based on Jung's theories with the intention of producing a useful test that would allow women entering the workforce to be assigned jobs that would be best suited to their personalities. This is already enough to make some people wary. Myers and Briggs weren't trained scientists, but you don't need to be scientifically qualified to make a very valid contribution to science. Look at Galaxy Zoo. Also, deriving all your information from a single source is always questionable in science, even if it weren't the work of Carl Jung, whose theories are very influential and far-reaching, but largely scientifically untestable and subject to numerous criticisms. But the debate around the validity of Jung's theories certainly isn't something I could settle in a blog post. The trouble is, the more you look into the specifics of the MBTI, the more questionable the way its widespread use appears to be. There are numerous comprehensive criticisms about it online, but the most obvious flaw is that the MBTI seems to rely exclusively on binary choices. For example, in the category of extrovert versus introvert, you're either one or the other. There is no middle ground. People don't work this way. No normal person is either 100% extrovert or 100% introvert, just as people's political views aren't purely communist or fascist. Many who use the MBTI claim otherwise, despite the fact that Jung himself disagreed with this, and statistical analysis reveals even data produced by the test shows a normal distribution rather than bimodal, refuting the either-or claims of the MBTI. But still, this overly simplified interpretation of human personality endures even in the Guardian science section. Generally, although not completely unscientific, the MBTI gives a ridiculously limited and simplified view of human personality, which is a very complex and tricky concept to pin down and study. The scientific study of personality is indeed a valid discipline, and there are many personality tests that seemingly hold up to scientific scrutiny thus far. It just appears that MBTI isn't one of them. But so what? People often benefit from things with a limited scientific basis for many reasons. Scientific validity is necessary if you're trying to diagnose a disorder of some sort. But in the everyday workplace, for team building and the like, this is what MBTI is used for most, so why go on some major nerd rant about how unscientific it is when it doesn't really matter? Yes, the MBTI is harmless and potentially useful if you're aware of its limitations. That's the problem, though. The MBTI is predominantly used in the workplace by HR departments, development training teams, and the like, who can often be clearly unaware of its limitations. I've been fortunate enough in my career to never have been profiled by someone using the MBTI, but many others haven't been so lucky. The following comments were among numerous emailed to me directly in response to a tweeted request. Commenters are anonymous, as their livelihoods could be threatened if their identities were known. Here's the first one. As a member of the development team, I am expected to, at the very least, support the use of Myers-Briggs. MBTI is the default training solution for any kind of team building event. People very often say something like, I think that I am just a T. I'm not just a T or an F. Can I be somewhere in the middle? And my colleagues will patiently explain that you must be one or the other. This is the most disputed aspect of the whole thing. And yet, there we are explaining with complete authority that, no, you are either a thinker or a feeler. It is stupid. I wince when I see one of the members of my team trying to convince an employee, who I happen to know has a psychology degree, that MBTI is infallible. Several reports like this reveal just how deeply entrenched and rigid this faith in the MBTI really is. Training in the MBTI and its variations is typical for those in human resources, etc., and can be quite expensive. The MBTI as an industry apparently makes $20 million a year. When you spent so much time and money on learning something, of course you're going to have a faith in it, even to the point of cognitive dissonance. This sort of thing has been going on for quite some time, as the next commenter reveals. When I was back in high school 25 plus years ago, a lot of teachers gave the test at the beginning of the year. In one class, I was asked to write about what I learned about myself by taking the test. I wrote a whole paper about how unscientific the test was and how I didn't learn anything. That teacher had me removed from her class within a week for unrelated trumped-up reasons. It was like I was questioning her religion. It's easy to assume that the unthinking faith in the MBTI is the preserve of businesses and companies, but it seems as it's found in schools too. And I've been told about people enduring MBTI-based assessment with negative consequences in our beloved cash-stricken, cuts-ravaged NHS. That's right. The health service seemingly spends a lot of money on training and assessment methods that aren't as supported by evidence as many would expect. Worrying. The extent to which MBTI is relied upon can reach quite farcical levels, as another commenter revealed. I interviewed for a new job, and after the first interview stage, I received an email from my recruiter that the second stage interview wouldn't be an interview at all, but a set of tests, which would help the company to understand my mathematical and reasoning ability, my understanding of language, and my personality. That's right, just like something out of a teen magazine, my second interview would not involve me meeting the people I would work with, meeting again with management, or even a technical test, but instead would be the grown-up corporate world equivalent of a could you date Justin Bieber quiz. Some employees trust the MBTI more than their own judgment. Even if potential employees were entirely passive and unfailingly honest, this would be unwise. I've even been told about companies that make a point of putting employee MBTI profiles on doors to their offices so people entering know how best to engage with them. Whether the employees had the results of their drug test tattooed on the back of their necks, too, wasn't mentioned, but it wouldn't surprise me. I obviously can't verify the above quotes, and I know the anecdotal evidence should be taken lightly, but this is just a small selection of the responses I got from one casual query. There are many possible reasons why the MBTI is so entrenched in workplaces and promoted so enthusiastically. There's the expense and training involved mentioned above. It may be because everyone uses it, so people conclude it must be reliable, and thus its success becomes self-perpetuating. Also, any personality type you get assigned is invariably positive. There is no combination of answers you could give on the MBTI which says you're an arsehole. I personally feel it's more to do with people's tendency to go for anything that offers an easy solution. People will always go for the new fad diet, alternative remedy, $5 wrinkle trick that makes dermatologists hate you for some reason. For all that it may be well intended, the MBTI offers a variation on that. People are very complex, variable, and unpredictable. Many users of the MBTI believe that a straightforward test can simplify them to the point where they can be managed, controlled, and utilized to make them as efficient and productive as possible. It's no wonder businesses are keen to embrace something like that. It would be the ideal tool if it were guaranteed to achieve this. Evidence suggests it isn't, though. People are far more sophisticated than any basic yes-no test could ever hope to encompass. Employers who assume otherwise in the face of all available evidence run the constant risk of alienating and infuriating those they intend to manage more effectively.
Thank you, Mark. And as a matter of fact, that fits almost perfectly within the space that we had allotted for it, because it's time to bring in our music. And let's put Armando on notice. Armando, were you offended in some way by the fashion in which I handled it? I was just fumbling around. If you want to join us after the break, that would be more than welcome. Plenty to talk about. And hey, if I don't like what you bring us, we'll just talk about something else. That's not a big deal. We can handle it. Thanks again to Mark Hogue for bringing us that piece. An interesting look back at something we foisted on you yesterday. We like to self-correct from time to time. We'll be right back. Welcome back, then, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. You can hear the music now. I've fixed things here, so I had to answer the phone to let Armando in the door. And, where's my controls to turn the music back down? Do you know where I put those, Armando? Hang on a second. All right, well, here we go. There's no such thing as topics on this show, so really there's no reason to, well, I guess we're done with the Myers-Briggs test, certainly. I wanted to at least bring that up because lots of people have some experience with it, and if it's ever struck you that it might be weird or unscientific or just uncomfortable and stupid, or I can't decide whether this really describes me or not, there's probably a pretty good reason for that, and it's that there's really no scientific data on it, but what a widespread and popular test it is. And I've heard about companies like that then everybody takes the test and then you swap results, or people even put the thing on their door so that I guess if you really paid attention to the team building exercise that sometimes goes along with applying the Myers-Briggs test to everybody, you would be able to then, in having a meeting with somebody who was a particular type, say, I know exactly how I should present my information to them. And they're likely saying, this is weird and stilted. Just tell me what you have to say. Anyway, good information, and probably a couple of you out there that rubbed the wrong way. Not that we were really basing any of our analysis on it. It's that there are people who process information and learn things differently and in different styles, and that's still valid, even if the test that tells you what you are and always will be isn't scientifically valid. All right. So moving on from
there's that. I throw that in the Lakoff pile. So
okay,
I'm not a big fan of either. So
it can help, but all right, great.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. First of all, how can you tell?
I don't know.
Are you going to sit everybody down and give them the test so you can figure out how to persuade them?
Yes, we should give Oath Keepers the test so we can figure out how they're going to patrol our schools.
Jesus. Well, I don't know. Listen, I gave you a list of things that I have interested me. I don't know if any of them interest you. I have one I could add to you, which is sort of a kooky, as they always are, Andrew McCarthy piece on the Carter Page FISA warrant, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, well, we do need to get back to the topic. Let's see, what else have we got here? DACA on the docket, possibility.
That
Monica
would take 5 minutes. It's
okay.
actually a very important and good development, and it has implications in two ways. Most importantly, to the DACA holders, which is an important reprieve.
Yes.
From the March 5th date. I just describe it because I think it's even if it's only a 2-minute discussion.
We haven't touched on it.
Mentioned it in passing, unless you talked about it yesterday.
We haven't, so please do.
Okay. Well, yesterday the Supreme Court denied the Trump administration's request for immediate consideration and for a stay of district court orders that struck down Trump's DACA repealing executive order. Mm-hmm. So as of now, Trump's executive order is not valid, and those orders are still in place. There are two appeal processes that would need to be had, but they start, of course, the circuit court, as you know. But if our listeners don't, there's 3 levels of courts in the federal system. There's the district court, which is the court of first instance, the trial court, if you will. Then there is an intermediate appellate court, which are the circuits. In this case, we're talking about the Second Circuit, which encompasses New York and Vermont and Connecticut. And then there's the Ninth Circuit, which is a huge circuit. It really does need to be divided, but only when there's a Democrat in office. Not now. But that encompasses, I believe, Arizona, New York, California. That would be something. California, Oregon, and Washington, and some other states that, frankly, I don't recall. I don't practice in the Ninth Circuit. But anyway, the upshot is the Supreme Court said we're not bypassing. David?
Yes. Here you are.
Okay. Sometimes I worry that I've lost you. That they're not bypassing intermediate review. They're not issuing any immediate stays. Go back to regular order. Regular order in the judicial context is file your appeal to the circuit.
Right. Okay.
Ask them for any relief if you want expedited relief. Ask them for expedited briefing if you want expedited briefing, and they'll handle their docket as they do. What that means is, depending on the speed at which the circuits handle these things, this thing would not see the Supreme Court this year, in my opinion. It wouldn't be till next year. Now, Trump, of course, could bypass that and issue a new executive order and do it right. Remember that the failing that the district courts have found was his only reason for issuing it is he thinks it's illegal. He thinks DACA is illegal. And the DACA executive order is illegal.
Right.
Obama's. And those courts said, you're wrong. Therefore, you have no basis for issuing this order. Ergo, get out of here.
Yeah, okay. Simple.
So he could come back and have a different reason, which is admitting that he actually wants to repeal DACA. He says, no, I just don't want it. Of course, he's been at pains to say he loves the DACA kids.
Yeah.
And it's all the Democrats' fault. Well, that doesn't cut it anymore. Now he has to get rid of DACA. He has to say, I don't like DACA, and I'm getting rid of it, at least for the time being. That gets us through the election, which is important if we can at least win a House or something. And then, of course, he can always end DACA, and they can block legislation. It's going to be subject to filibusters and whatnot, and we'll never get, even in our wildest dreams. Well, and you still have Trump. I mean, if he doesn't want to do it, you don't do it. So it's really changes the political calculus and, in essence, the negotiation of DACA. Remember, Trump has been trying to hold the DACA recipients hostage for the Stephen Miller view of immigration, which is racist and wants to basically stop immigration as much as possible, except when it comes to white people.
Right.
So it really was important in the sense it changed the political calculus. I mean, effectively, Donald Trump could do it tomorrow by just saying, I don't like it. I just don't like it. I'm repealing it. But his constant refusal to want to be the person saying that has kept him from doing it. So unless he changes gears, DACA will continue, at least through the election, if the schedules run as we expect them to.
I am not sure why he persists in pretending that he likes DACA. I would have thought that he would have figured out a while ago that his base would love him to simply denounce DACA.
Deport them.
Yeah. But okay.
I don't know either. I don't know. I mean, he may change tomorrow.
Yeah, that's possible, true. Or else it's it's another instance of his insane fear of admitting that he's wrong. You know, changing course would be like saying, well, I did something wrong here and I'm perfect, so I'd rather lose pretending I'm perfect than win and admit, I did something wrong.
He's got a long way on Twitter on DACA, so it's interesting. It would be an interesting back down. He has done things that reverse course all the time.
Yeah.
This one would be a significant one, and he really has, as much as he's done anything of late, that's been one. Now, of course, we see now on guns, he was for raising the purchase age to 21, at least for the ARs.
Right, for a little while.
And we're reporting that he's already backing down from that. Apparently, the NRA got to him. I mean, I know I didn't want to steer you back to guns, but I will just give you an aside. It just seems to me most likely that Trump doesn't really have an opinion on it that's meaningful. Well, he doesn't have an opinion on much of anything that's meaningful, but the other than worship Trump, but it seemed like they were playing for time, and I don't know, it's still there. The gun discussion, of all the gun discussions, this one's gone on. Again, this is just an impression that this one's gone on longer than most after another gun incident massacre. I think Sandy Hook maybe went longer. I don't recall. That was 6 years ago, right?
December 2012. So
right.
Not
so
quite,
that's
but yeah, 5.
Not quite 5. A little more than 5 years ago. So it's not fresh in my mind. But in some respects, I'm sure you've discussed, this one's gone longer, and it's probably as much to do with the ability of the students to articulate for themselves their points of view, and their very popular guest on all the TV shows. So it could possibly continue. There's that, and it'll be interesting to tie it back to DACA. Will Trump bite the bullet? Stephen Miller probably was arguing for it, but I don't know if it's something he'll want to do. I'm not sure it's something that the Republican Party would want him to do. DACA now sort of sits there dormant. It's not a political issue now. If Trump has to do something, it becomes, at least in theory, a much more high-profile political issue going into the midterm. So perhaps they'll just sit tight and not worry about it. We'll see. I also mentioned to you there was this incident yesterday about the Georgia lieutenant governor, who threatened tax benefits that are being proposed to Delta Airlines, which you can argue about whether Delta should be getting more tax benefits. I don't know all the particulars there, but what was interesting was the threat to not give those benefits to Delta was based on Delta's elimination of its discount program for NRA members.
Yeah.
And I had a back and forth with someone on Twitter about whether what Delta did was speech, and therefore was the act an attempt to punish political speech. I think it pretty clearly is speech.
Sure.
Even if you, pardon?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, even if you don't, they are pains of saying, well, we're not taking a position on guns. We just don't want you to think we can take the NRA's position. I think that's speech. That's saying I am not taking this political position. I'm making it clear that I'm not taking a political position in favor of the NRA. I think that's speech. And I know a little bit about this because I worked on a pretty big case once where a government retaliated against a newspaper for bad coverage. This is in a local setting where they pulled ads for different public notices and things like that governments have to do pursuant to law. And we succeeded in establishing that if we could prove that, that would violate the First Amendment. So we proved that even if you're acting in your official and authorized capacity, this is something you'll hear a lot about with Trump and obstruction of justice, but here it is in a different setting. That doesn't shield you. Just because you have the power, you don't have the power to use it in an unconstitutional manner, or in an illegal manner for that matter. But let's start with the unconstitutional because it's here. I mean, the First Amendment prohibits restrictions on speech by the government via the 14th Amendment incorporation doctrine. This applies to the states. States can't punish speech in this way or in any other way, but in terms of withholding or revoking government benefits, it's a violation of the First Amendment. It's a clearly established constitutional violation that matters because, in fact, if this Lieutenant Governor of Georgia does this, he could be personally liable to Delta. That is, let's say Delta lost $1 billion because of his acts. It's not just a question of reversing it or not reversing it.
Now I can't hear you. Well, for whatever reason, we have lost your audio there. Okay, well, we'll have to give that another try then. Or perhaps we can.
Given that, it's not what's going to happen, but it could happen, and it's pretty amazing that the guy would just flat out say it. Usually these things are hidden. You never want to put your motives on. It's reminiscent of when Donald Trump went on with Lester Holt and said, no, it was Russia. That's why I fired Comey. It's bad litigation strategy at the very least. And it really shows to some degree either the stupidity or the hubris or the descent of our country into things where pure banana republicanism has become the norm, that they don't even, head fake even a little bit anymore.
Now, as that's playing to their base now, is to ignore the strictures of operating in a free democracy. But they really love that. And what was it? I can't recall what the topic was that Trump himself recently said. Essentially, what is it? I'm not even going to wait for Congress. Who cares? Basically what the law says. We're just going to go and do it. Whatever. And he said that on a number of things. Of course, that was his counsel to the Native Americans who were interested in, I guess, leasing mineral exploitation rights on reservation land. Don't worry about what the courts say. Just go and do it. What are they going to do? Make you put the stuff back? That's what I always do in business. And I think he said something recently along the same lines. And, lead off story this morning of the Students for Trump group that has gotten 9 letters from the FEC saying, hey, listen, you never filed any information with us. You have to. You simply have to. It's a matter of law. You must file. And 1, they're students. And 2, they don't run the thing anyway. It's being run by their donors, and they want to keep it quiet who the donors are. So they just say, I saw your letter. Nobody's arresting me, so it must be okay. We're just going to continue doing what we're doing, and you guys will just remain there voting in 2-2 deadlocks, and we know you're not going to come for us. nobody gets arrested for FEC violations. So, F you. We don't have donors. We're not going to tell you.
Well, I think that's there you go.
Yeah.
I mean, we know our electoral finance enforcement regime is, it doesn't work.
Right.
People don't. And listen, by the way, here it's Republicans and Trump, but Democrats are pretty good at not following those rules either. When they file their reports, everything. I mean, it's just a joke. And
yeah, we're not very good.
I don't know what
enforcing.
you do. I mean, there is the segment where Trump does have to worry, and the FEC is not an issue, which is, I think, two aspects. Number one, to the degree that he or his campaign, to go back to an old theme of mine of indicting the Trump campaign, if they worked to permit foreign influence in the election, either through finance or in-kind contributions, that's a crime.
Yeah.
Something that Bob Bauer explained very well at the beginning of all this. And I've always thought that to the degree that this gets to Trump, it's going to get to his campaign and him and his role as the principal of the campaign. So that's the one teeth. Now, that's not going to happen to these kids. There's no I don't even know if they're kids. I assume there's some adult with a lot of money who's just, what is it? Crisis actors. These these Trump kids are. But I think it's not unthinkable that Mueller leans on the criminal penalties for violation of the electoral finance rules and laws as a basis to indict the Trump campaign.
I'd be okay with it.
I know it's talked about it. There's been not a single leak, but I would remind everyone that, in fact, Mueller has never leaked. Every time we hear from Mueller, it's always a surprise.
That's true. So far, it has worked pretty well.
He's got Weissman, and it's clear Weissman is just killing them on the finance stuff. Look at poor Manafort. I mean, They got him so dead to rights, it's not even funny. They could miss on 30 of the 32 counts, and he's still going to jail for 30 years, and he's 70, so that would be it. I think Mueller has the best handle on all this, and I have no way of knowing why I think that, other than just watching his performance so far, and all these arguments about what to do and what's Congress going to do. Congress is not overseeing any of this. We know this, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, they basically just doing nothing. They have an oversight role. They just don't care to exercise it and don't believe that, they're unwilling to let the evidence lead where it leads, and instead are doing everything they can to what about everything. I mean, and of course, Trump, every time he opens his mouth on the subjects, whether on Twitter or in live space, ends his rants by saying there's criminality from crooked Hillary Clinton. You should be looking at that. And I guess Congress can look at whatever it wants to, essentially. And because they're Republicans, they want to look at Hillary Clinton or pretend they're not even doing a good job at that, by the way. They're not actually working on it. They just say, well, we should be looking at that or something. I don't know. And then they muddle around every once in a while. They hold a hearing and yell at whoever the Democrats bring as witnesses and praise whoever they invite as witnesses. And I don't know whether they're writing reports or anything. No idea.
Yeah, and literally don't care. I mean, I've said to me that I don't trust any of these investigations, not even from the Senate Intelligence Committee. Burr will block something before it's all said, and they're all nice to each other and they say nice words about each other, but I'm not expecting anything from Burr's committee. I'm certainly not expecting anything from Grassley and Graham. And Devin Nunes is just openly,
he's just working as an agent for the Russians.
And this guy Conaway, who supposedly replaced Nunes as head of the Russian investigation, which, by the way, whatever happened to the recusal.
Right.
But he just said yesterday he doesn't see any reason. He doesn't see anything like Deutsche Bank. What's Deutsche Bank got to do with Russia?
Yeah,
he asked yesterday.
Right. They're German, so, can't be anything there. It's Congress will do nothing. They're, I guess, fulfilling one constitutional role in that they are refusing to to declare that there's anything wrong with Trump's collection of emoluments. They're not affirmatively okaying them, which is what I guess they're supposed to do. They're just simply refusing to denounce it, and so it continues unabated, and it's getting even more obvious and more outlandish. A couple of reports I've got in pocket of just the number of American, as far as the domestic emoluments clause goes, and if you want something from the administration, all you need to do is rent a ballroom at the Trump DC hotel and let it be known that you've done that. And you, as the reporters are following along, there's a curious correlation between people who have made rental payments at his properties or held their retreats at his golf courses and people who get legislative and regulatory relief from pending questions. If you pay, you get your way. If you don't pay, you're, mired in bureaucracy.
Oh, it's crazy conflict stuff. It's an outrage. The president, unfortunately, is not subject to these conflict rules for some reason, but it's an outrage. Now, on the emoluments point, and I see you reference this notion of Trump donating his, quote, profits from foreigners.
Foreign emoluments, yes.
First of all, there's little chance that that's actually true. I've come to this conclusion, maybe you have as well, that everything the Trump administration says is a lie.
Yes, pretty much.
I don't believe any of this is true.
Not only that, but the opposite is usually true.
The opposite,
polar opposite of
they
what
probably
they
haven't
said.
done anything.
Yes.
But even if they did, they still have another set of, quote, profits, unquote, to donate to the Treasury. And that would be from state and local government officials and their associations. That's what the domestic emoluments clause is about. It prohibits the president from receiving any other compensation or consideration from any entity that's not the United States government.
Right. And yet, who cares, right? What are they doing? Now, there is no oversight. And one of the questions I put to you, and I know we've got a few minutes, but I'll put it to you quickly and let you mull on it, which is, what is Congress doing now in terms of what it has to do? I assume they have to do appropriations bills. I know they did the budget, but I think, as we've discussed before, that doesn't spend the money. You have to actually go appropriate. Yes.
I don't know what other policy legislation that's front burner. Immigration is dead.
Yeah, I don't
know. In terms of health care,
could be infrastructure week.
Pardon?
Could be infrastructure week, maybe, possibly. At some point.
I guess there is infrastructure. Is that in the budget, though? I mean, that's what throws me.
I don't know. I don't know what's in the budget. It's usually pointless to look at what's in the president's budget. What comes out of Congress is what you're supposed to look at. That's the process they're supposed to be in now.
Yeah, but they just passed. I was thinking more of the congressional budget that just got passed. Yeah. I mean, is there some big something for infrastructure? I don't recall that being discussed.
I don't recall it being, because it's hard to keep track in the middle of all the other various things. We could check that out and we can do some digging. And I assume that they probably threw something in that direction, but I don't know what. It's like it's 10th on the list of horrible things that could be going on. So I don't know.
It was amazing. I watched Rachel Maddow last night, and it was like, she went through this thing of scandals that tied up into look who Trump wants to name the head of the FAA.
Yes, his personal pilot.
I don't know if you saw that. It was fantastic. And it started with Pence's planes always having bad landings because they had this crazy bad pilot, apparently.
Whose fault is that?
And the fact that pilot was a replacement for the previous pilot, who was a felon, who was wanted on some felony assault charges. And then it turns out, who was running all this operation? This guy, and now Trump wants to name him FAA head.
Sure, why not?
And she was like, the point, you can't keep up with every scandal because everything's a scandal. Everything.
Yeah. Well, Pretty much, and and he limits himself to his own circles. Whoever his lawyers are should be government lawyers. Whoever his pilots are should be the head of the FAA. Whoever is, scooping his ice cream should be the head of HHS. I don't know. I'm not certain. But yeah, and I don't know what they're doing on infrastructure. And we know at this point they should be working on appropriations bills. No idea whether they're actually doing that. We'll take a quick break, regroup, come back, finish the show, tell you something else scandalous.
Which
Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning, interrupting this little break to say thanks so much to all of you who are contributing supporters of Kagro in the Morning. Thousands of you are downloading the show each day, but fewer than 1 in 25 regular listeners are donating to help keep us on the air. For the money you'd spend on a single 3-minute iTunes song, we bring you 2 hours of great news and entertainment every day, 5 days a week. Patreon.com, Patreon.com makes it easy. You can find us there by searching Kagro X or David Waldman or Kagro in the Morning or even Daily Coast Radio in their search box, and you'll be right where you need to be to make easy, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Once again, thanks so much for your support. Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning show here on Netroots Radio. Armando's still with us. There's a million directions we could be going in. I'm not picking this one at random. I feel like this is not something that's an issue of an area of expertise for me, but I feel like we got to get this on the record because this could explode soon too. And it seems like it has numerous implications in Trump-Russia investigation area, in just basically how our elections run in general, with or without Russian interference. This throws a real monkey wrench into things, dealing with Facebook and how they affect elections and what the hell they are. I mean, we've had that question come up before. Are they a newspaper? Are they an advertising vector? Are they social media? Are they espionage? Are they just a vector for foreign interference? And how responsible should we hold them? And they're entirely unprepared to deal with that question themselves. Remember, again, although they're now worth billions of dollars and they're all supposed to be serious business people because they're worth billions of dollars, they're largely a bunch of college kids. Look, man, I just wanted a way to look at hot girls online and rate them, and now I'm effing up elections. I don't know what to do, says Mark Zuckerberg, essentially. I go on so I'll run for president myself. I don't know, and maybe I can fix it that way. Here's what we got here. This one is real interesting. It's from Wired magazine, and of course, I don't know whether they consider themselves a magazine anymore or not. I was reminded of it because I just saw a tweet from Joshua Benton, who runs the Nieman Lab at Harvard, apparently, and says, I'm kind of amazed that this exchange hasn't got more attention. And it reminded me that I had this in pocket and a comment from a couple of other popular tweeters that'll sum things up. I'm kind of amazed this exchange hasn't gotten more attention. Top officials from both the Trump and Clinton campaigns agreeing that Facebook's ad pricing algorithm charged Clinton 100 to 200 times as much for its ads as it charged Trump. And one of the real dangers, of course, is that this could possibly have been the matter of an algorithm and like no live person made any decision ever. And it'll explain how that could possibly be the case. But if somebody did make a decision, then it's a pretty serious one. They lobbied for years to be exempted from the political advertising regime that we use to regulate things here in this country, which ordinarily says everybody has to be not only charged the same, but charged like the lowest available rate because free speech.
Correct.
You want to do it. Now, this is charging.
That must end immediately. I mean, that has to end.
Yeah.
You are now a media company. You are subject to all of the rules.
So how does that happen?
Go
The
ahead.
exchange that they're talking about is one between Nicholas Thompson and Brad Parscale and Jennifer Palmieri here. It's screen capped, so I can't roll over it and see who every single one of them are. Brad Parscale's name we recognize. Palmieri's name we recognize. Nicholas Thompson, I don't off the top of my head.
Nicholas Thompson, if it's who I think he is a reporter for The Atlantic.
Okay. And this comment here begins the chain here. He's talking about Brad Parscale's comment. Finally, Wired gets it right. And I have the Wired piece here. Here is an insider at Facebook that built the system and saw behind the curtain. And here's the link. Nicholas Thompson commenting, one thing I've long wanted to find but haven't is exactly the difference in Facebook ad CPMs paid by the Trump campaign versus the Hillary campaign. If anyone knows, DMs are open. Basically the question is, were they charged vastly different rates? How could it possibly have happened? Quick answer without reading the entire Wired column comes courtesy of NYC Southpaw tweeting the other day. This is what made me put this article aside. This article about Facebook's auction system, which Brad Parscale just endorsed, says that Facebook systematically charged the Clinton campaign more, and now we know how much more, for ad space than the Trump campaign. Why? How could it happen? Well, a live person who does it, illegal. You're in trouble. You got big problems. Or an algorithm that does it, who can blame? What are you going to do? Arrest the algorithm? Here's what. Why would an algorithm do that?
Someone wrote the algorithm, but okay.
Yes, right. Well, you could go after them, but of course that person ends up in court and says, dude, I just wanted to look at hot girls online and have a rating system for them. I didn't know it was going to do this. And it's plausible that it might be the case. Here's what happened. Here's why an algorithm would work like that. Charging the Clinton campaign more for ad space than the Trump campaign because Clinton's ads were less provocative. Now, here's the screen grab from the page if we don't get through the whole thing. As on Google, Facebook has a piece of ad real estate that it's auctioning off. And potential advertisers submit a piece of ad creative, that is to say, the visuals and the verbiage that you're going to put in it. In the business, they call that's the creative. Okay, fine, you create it. It's an ad. Right.
Well, that's why Parscale is bragging about this. He says, look at me. Look how brilliant I was. I knew how to do it.
And it is sort of in an evil genius sort of a way. It's rather brilliant to know that this was going to happen because I wouldn't guess it, right? I thought we were governed by a regime that charged everybody the same for ad space in a campaign by law for a very good reason. And apparently, it's actually not only the opposite of that. We charge this guy 100 times less than you. And the reason is because his ads are more provocative. That is to say, they're fake. It's fake news in ad format, and it's clickbait. And because it gets clicked a lot, that's why it's charged less. It's much more engaging, and that's what Facebook wants. So here's the deal. You're auctioning off a piece of ad real estate, and potential advertisers submit what they're going to run as their proposed ad. A targeting spec for their ideal user, like who do we want to be targeting and clicking on this thing, and a bid for what they're willing to pay to obtain a desired response, such as a click, a like, or a comment. Rather than simply award that ad position to the highest bidder, though, Facebook uses a complex model that considers both the dollar value of each bid, and all the computers are doing this so they can handle it, right? The dollar value of each bid, as well as how good a piece of clickbait or view bait or comment bait the corresponding ad is. If Facebook's model thinks your ad is 10 times more likely to engage a user than another company's ad or candidate's ad, then your effective bid at auction is considered 10 times higher than a company willing to pay the same dollar amount. So in other words, an ad that says boring things like, I'm going to fight for health care access for all Americans and we're going to be in this together, et cetera, versus Hillary is a secret witch. She drinks the blood of Christian babies and we have to stop it. That gets much more clicks and that gets 10 times lower rate, essentially. You can buy that ad for 10 to 100 to 200 times less than a boring ad that says something normal that people actually were supposed to want to vote on. That's where social media has left us here. There's another screen grab that says, during the run-up to the election, the Trump and Clinton campaigns bid ruthlessly for the same online real estate in front of the same swing state voters. But because Trump used provocative content to stoke social media buzz, he was better able to drive likes, comments, and shares than Clinton. His bids received a boost from Facebook's click model, effectively winning him more media for less money. In essence, Clinton was paying Manhattan prices for the square footage of your smartphone screen, while Trump was paying Detroit prices. Sorry, Detroit. Facebook users in swing states who felt Trump had taken over their news feeds may not have been hallucinating. Why didn't she go to Wisconsin? Well, she could have gone there, but it wouldn't have the impact of being able to advertise for pennies on the dollar there. And not only was it cheaper for him to advertise, therefore, but it made sense. Like, well, we were all scratching our heads. How does this win an election? How could you possibly run for president and be constantly advertising Hillary is ISIS, she drinks blood, spirit cooking, Pizzagate is real, whatever? How could you possibly do that and be taken seriously? I don't know. America's crazy, but they were bombarded, flooded for pennies with this stuff, and it crowded out any discussion, any opportunity to discuss, I'd like to actually do something about healthcare, and I have a foreign policy. Boring. Give us porn and boobs. Okay.
Let me recycle a phrase. Facebook was objectively pro-Trump because of this.
Yes, they will pretend that they're not because computers did it, but okay. Whose computers? Mine? It wasn't mine. Yours.
They chose a system. They chose, David. I mean, you can say an algorithm, but somebody decided to use this algorithm.
Yeah.
And this algorithm was objectively pro-Trump.
Surely
Facebook
someone must have noticed the volume.
Pro-Trump.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it comes down to. The Wired piece is what I was reading from. Those screen grabs are from the Wired piece. It's called How Trump Conquered Facebook Without Russian Ads. Why Russia's Facebook ads were less important to Trump's victory than his own Facebook ads. And I don't know whether this was supposed to put out a fire.
It also can I just add one point?
Yeah.
It adds a layer of information about Rob Goldman, the vice president of advertising sales for Facebook's nonsensical Twitter thing that got him in trouble.
Yeah.
Because he was taking on Mueller, but it also puts it. He goes, "Oh, they only spent $100,000, and I saw the ads. Whatever. You've seen the ads,
yeah.
Or from the Russians. The Russians also probably benefited from that algorithm.
They must have had to. There is no other way. I mean, an algorithm is an algorithm. By the way, if you had different algorithms for running for different people, then I think you're in trouble for that. But who knows, because do we have any laws that govern anything like that? They may just have done this before we realized we needed a set of laws in it. But remember also that Facebook worked very hard and spent a lot of money to keep themselves exempt from the rules that would have required them to have a different algorithm for political advertising that charged everybody the same amount of money. And they weaseled their way out of that one. And they thought they were doing that in order to, make money and be able to keep it and not have the hassle of having to deal with federal regulations. But it left them susceptible to manipulation of the worst possible sort by the worst possible groups of people. And I mean, nationally and internationally, domestically and internationally, we got the most deplorable people in the world realizing, hey, I can basically hack the new way that Americans get their news and make them think something completely different, and I can do it for $10.
Exactly. Okay. So if you take that thought process, you said $100,000 was spent pre-election. Well, it turns out that's worth $10 million.
Yeah, well, apparently, if it's valued at 100 times what Hillary Clinton's bids are, then yeah. So is it $100,000 or $10 million?
What Rob Goldman was saying is basically the Russians spent the equivalent of $10 million that would have been spent by Hillary Clinton's campaign on Facebook.
That's how much it would have cost her to get that same space. Good. Well done. So,
Here's an interesting new story.
Yes.
Trump's new campaign manager, Brad Parscale, apparently he's going to be the campaign manager. That's what
next time around,
is saying.
Oh, okay.
Oversaw the Facebook dark post the Trump campaign used to depress the African American vote.
Well, there you go. I mean, that's another thing that was horribly wrong with Facebook, of course, the fact that you could run ads that were only seen by racists. Like, that's not a good idea. That probably won't result in anything happy for the United States. But again, look, we dropped the ball, I guess, in the sense that we took too long to realize the importance of Facebook to the way Americans get their news and advertising, and for some reason allowed them to continue to pretend that they were something other than a media company because there were essentially overgrown teenagers insisting all we're doing is looking at chicks. And okay, some people can share news now with one another. Families, we're pro-family. They get together and share pictures with one another. That's all we do. All right, so you're not a media company. I don't know why you would think that and that they're not a media company, but they are. That's all they've got.
I don't even understand how that conceivably could be true. Of course they're a media company.
They were new, and they had a lot of money, and they were passing it around. And, of course, I'm sure the California delegation, would do anything to previously, would have done anything to exempt them from anything that would get in the way of their growing at all in any direction they wanted. I don't know. So it's very weird. The Wired piece is very informative. I don't know whether the best thing to do with it is necessarily to read it and get outraged over it, but I think we got to the heart of it. Southpaw does us a great favor and distills out the important piece that makes it possible to understand what Rob Goldman was trying to claim and why the facts that he brought to bear may be true, but just aren't really the relevant way of evaluating them. That's what he lacked. He gave us no way of evaluating the facts that he brought us. And I guess Brad Parscale, proud of himself for having handled things in an evil genius sort of a way, has given us the key. We now understand why Rob Goldman could be telling the truth about the amount of money that the Russians spent, but not telling the truth about the impact of that money. And the same thing would have happened on the Trump campaign side officially. They just basically pushed an entire campaign out of the news, out of advertising.
This story is timely because apparently the big announcement is that Parscale will be the campaign manager for Trump in 2020.
Okay. Which is to say that it's not a political campaign. It's an online campaign. It's he's our head hacker, and that's what we're doing. He has no political sense. He was astonished to have been hired in the first place because he's not a political actor, but he's now the campaign chair because they're not running a political campaign. They're running a social media campaign.
Yep, and here's another tweet that you should take in mind. The Trump campaign has paid Brad Parscale's firms more than $93 million since 2015 for digital consulting plus advertising. I understand what that means is they ran $93 million through his firm. He bought the ads, most likely.
Yes.
So let's say he paid 20% of that. That means that $70 million was used for online ads like Facebook, and if you multiply that times 100,
yes,
that's $700 million.
Yes, or is it? What you say? 70 million times 10 100. Is 700 million, but times 100 is $7 billion.
$7 billion. Excuse me. You're right. I missed a zero. This is really a huge story, and I think that one of the problems is reporters don't understand these things. And they can't understand what this means. So you started your piece by saying, you have to give the lowest rate to political campaigns, and you can't discriminate against one campaign versus the other. Mm-hmm. Facebook flouted all of that.
Yeah.
Trump and the Russians drove their whole bus through that. When we talk about the expenditures now, we can't even look at it the way we should. With this Facebook revelation, you've just realized that that an outrageous we talk about the Russians, yes, and that was important, particularly because it was a combination of using the hacks to then amplify them through this Facebook objectively pro-Trump system. Facebook elected Donald Trump.
Apparently so.
About.
I mean, honestly, if the multiplier you're talking about is true, and I don't know whether Pascal is telling the truth, but I mean, if it's an algorithm, there's an answer, there's a number, and I can get it. Of course, whether or not we can make Facebook give it to us, I have no idea. But what do
you mean? The Congress can absolutely make them give it to you.
They can, but you know who they are. So next time around, we can ask.
We may not find out till after November.
Right. But yeah, so essentially what we're learning here is what they did was, here's the collusion such as it is. I think where it exists, it is a matter of, okay, listen, I have figured out a way that we can drive our advertising costs way, way down. And at the same time, drive the cost for the other campaign advertising way, way up.
But it's a zero-sum game.
Yeah, and it depends on our content being the more engaging. And here's the news. The most engaging content is the most ludicrous content. And or the most salacious content. And
we know who the most salacious campaign and candidate was.
And then the good news is that if you don't think you're creative enough to come up with stuff that will be salacious enough or outlandish enough, we have actually got the answer to that, because we hacked the DNC's computers and the campaign's computers, and we have a bunch of lunatics who are willing to take that information and pervert it into any, the most salacious clickbait possible. The more crazy our claims are, the better we do on pricing in Facebook, and therefore the worse she does on Facebook on pricing. And not only that, but I have an endless pipeline of crazy to turn into ads that will feed that cycle. I stole it from the DNC. The Russians are feeding us information that we should be able to use to turn into clickbait. And the clickier the clickbait, the more ads we can buy. We can literally spend the equivalent of $7 billion convincing all of America if we want to, but what if we concentrated it on swing states? $7 billion bombarding Facebook addicts with the news that there's a child sex ring in the basement of a pizza place in Washington, D.C., and Hillary Clinton is the biggest client. What? That's crazy. I know it sounds crazy, but as long as that's our ads cost 10 cents and hers cost $12,000. Do you want to do this? Yeah, I think I will. Well, wait a minute. But won't people think we're idiots advertising that she's a child sex dungeon mistress? Yes, but we could advertise in a way that only people who tend to believe this kind of nonsense would see, and very serious people would not. Oh, that is also good.
I think that shortchanges the power. I think that shortchanges the power. There has been a Hillary scandal, in quotes, industry on the right for 25 years.
The vast right-wing conspiracy.
I mean,
you've heard of it.
Takes it, of course, to another level.
Yes.
But it's the entire backdrop. And again, this also goes to a media. The paper of record, the New York Times, runs on its front page, Clinton Cash, Breitbart produced material.
Mm-hmm.
You've built not only a far-right fringe that's ready to go with this. You basically already have a group of
that's true too.
Middle of the road voters who are already conditioned.
Yes,
to
and of course
crazy stuff
and left
leaning. And then David, James Comey drops the letter on October 28th, the week before the election.
Right. So all the people reading the David Brooks columns and thinking we need to respect the culture or what have you, that crowd then says, well, FBI, maybe there's something to this after all. And they don't see the craziest of the crazy stuff, but yeah, what a perfect storm that makes.
So when we started the story, you really think 13 Russian trolls could have? Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now I'm beginning to think that perhaps they could have. And it doesn't need to be Russians, but it just so happens that they were also conducting this activity. And I think it fits nicely into the story. Once you find out that the more insane, the more salacious the claims in the ads, the more provocative the ads. And recall that the one thing I guess we all supposedly, maybe not, I'm sure there's some people, outliers, that don't agree. The thing most people agree that Russians were up to was provocation, right? Division, sowing division. And, they only had $100,000 to do it. Well, the more divisive the content, apparently, the more of a reach you got on Facebook, because and they could still claim, it was just this dumb algorithm. We built it really dumb. We're just dumb people. We didn't think about the way who would be manipulating it. We thought Americans would try to manipulate American companies, but we were cool with that. We didn't know Russian spies were going to manipulate it. Okay, that's possible.
Time out. What you just said is outrageous, but I just saw something on Twitter. The Florida Senate has unanimously voted to approve.
Yes.
Oh, no. Forget that. Sorry. It's a good thing they did. I wasn't outraged. I thought it was reversed. I thought it was a memorial to slave owners as opposed to the people who suffered under slavery.
Well,
they actually did a good thing.
All right. Well, that really would have been something.
Yes. That's why I stopped you, and I apologize.
Fair enough. If you thought it was a memorial to slave owners, that would be breaking news. All right. Well, yes. So I think we have. I don't know. I think we've got a interesting new angle on this, and I think to me, this begins to construct the nexus that some so-called skeptics have thought was missing in the collusion story. So the S listeners will say, well, you need to produce the facts on this. The N listeners will say, I think I see where you're going here. The Russian pipeline of information, true or not, legitimately acquired or not, was aimed at sowing division and creating provocation. And it just so happens that is the gas that runs Facebook's engine.
Facebook is a cancer.
I guess so.
It screams for actual reform on this. This is a serious problem. And obviously, you've got a situation where the president can veto anything, and he would almost certainly do that. But we got an issue. I don't know what we do.
I don't know. I mean, I guess you come down to it at the bottom line. Everybody knows. Everybody's serious. Everybody knows that you're supposed to charge campaigns the same price. Facebook has carved out a niche for itself where it is allowed to sell campaign and political advertising for different prices, and that in the first instance is problematic and wrong. Then it just builds from there. Not only are the prices different, but the prices get better the worse and more deplorable your advertising is. Then, of course, you can add the layer of dark advertising, but we don't have to get to that. I mean, even if it's completely open and notorious, the idea that not only are the prices different, which is a problem first, but the prices get better for you and worse for the other side, the more of a disservice you do America, essentially. That's basically, I don't know how else to describe it. Consider the content of their ads and consider what ads got the most engagement. And the answer is the more damage you were willing to do to America, the better your prices got and the worse your opponent's prices got. I can't think of a more perfect machine for killing America. Honestly, I think that's probably it. I don't know what else to say.
Yep. No, I mean, the Facebook is objectively anti-American.
Okay, well, that's true. So therefore, pro-Saddam. He's dead now, but that's what they used to say. You're objectively pro-Saddam. Well, I think that has that's a rich vein to be mined over the next couple of days. I'm glad I was able to get that out there. Everyone should read this Wired article. There will only be more to come in the next couple of days. And now I see that tweet you were talking about, Ken Thomas, AP reporting President Trump names former digital advisor Brad Parscale as campaign manager for the 2020 re-election campaign. Quite honestly, that might be all the evidence you need of that theory of collusion. Brad Parscale is not a political person. He's not a fundraiser. He's not a ad content creative guy. He's not a media person. None of the traditional disciplines that have ever managed a campaign in the history of China are there. He just knows how to get good pricing on Facebook. That tells you that's what they value the most, and Wired tells you why. So I got to wrap it up. Thank you, Armando. I'm glad you were on hand for this discovery.
Thank you.
We'll talk more about it later in the week. I appreciate your coming by and filling us in on other things that are actually important besides the ruination of the country, all contributing to it. And I'll tell you after this what's coming up on Justice's program next.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Let's cram it all in there. What's Justice got for you? Mick Mulvaney stopped oversight on predatory lenders because of his firm belief in the sucker beware rule. And it's not every day that a sitting congressman is accused of perpetrating a fraud, not only against the public, but even against his own company's customers. Let's find out what that's all about. Plus the West Virginia teachers strike next.